Hey everyone, and welcome back to Small Screen Sagas. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I'll be talking about the show from Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Pas de Deux. I did have to look up the meaning of this title, because I'm like, what does that mean? And it's a dance of two partners, or a step of two, so it's in reference to the ballerina that we saw throughout the episode, or that Boyd was seeing throughout the episode. All right, my initial thoughts. I love this episode. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it twice now in less than 24 hours. It was exciting. It was thrilling. I was on the edge of my seat, literally, especially when Elgin was driving that van, everything. It was a really good episode, and I'm excited to talk about it. So normally what I do is I kind of go by character or different storylines. However, they were at the clinic for most of the episodes, so we're going to start off with Mario and Crystal, then talk about the Matthews family, Fatima and Ellis, and then everything else will be pretty much Boyd, the clinic, and everything that transpired throughout the episode. All right, so we see Mario. Last week we saw her. She was using the drugs. It was disappointing to find out. And I did question, hey, did she get a drug addiction or start her drug addiction after Kristi left? Or is this something that she had before? And that was immediately answered. She did have a drug addiction before. It sounds like it was under control, or at least that she had been clean for a while, because even Kristi was like, you've been doing so good. Like, what happened? Kristi, of course, found her pamphlet for her rehabilitation, and that's where she was on her way to when she was on the bus. She was going to a rehabilitation program, which is promising because that means she was trying to get herself clean while Kristi was still gone and disappeared. And it was a tough time for her. So that makes a little bit more understanding that she had this drug addiction and then she relapsed once her fiance disappeared, which would be stressful for anyone. I mean, people may even start a drug addiction or turn to alcohol or whatever vice that they choose when they're under a lot of stress. So I kind of appreciated that they gave us that background that, hey, this is something she's already been going through. However, Kristi is pissed. She's like, hell no, I know you did not start this because of me disappearing. These drugs, the medicine that we have here, it's very, very important because we have a limited supply, and I can't have you taking that supply for your addiction. Now, I didn't like how Mario was like, stop acting like I'm just some junkie, okay? But then immediately Kristi goes, have you took anything from here? And she admits, yes, I took a little morphine just to help me out. And it was like, girl, you took that medicine the same day it arrived. So it's not like you had to think it over for a few days and was like, I just need it. You took it that same exact day. So for Mario to try to turn things on Kristi and make it seem like she was mad at Kristi, I didn't like that. Like, she was yelling at Kristi as if she was in the wrong. Don't try to make your thing that you were trying to hide from her. I don't know. I can't explain it, but Mario, you were wrong. Just take this L. And you know, she admitted, that she took the drugs, but her getting mad at Kristi, I did not like that. So later in the episode, when they're having to help Ellis, and Kristi was like, you need to leave, and Mario did stand her ground. She's like, hey, I'm fine right now. Let me help. So that made it look good for Mario. But then, of course, we see Mario later on, just a quick little scene, her eyeing that cabinet. So I'm going to go ahead and say she's not okay and that she does not need to stay at the clinic. Not as a form of punishment, but just for her own safety and for the safety of everyone else. They need that medicine. She can't be trusted there. I mean, unless they have a lock on it. It looks like they have a lock, but it's unlocked all the time. So unless they actually start locking it up, she doesn't need to be there for her own safety. Then we have a quick scene of the Matthews, Donna, and Mrs. Liu. They're all there sorting the food, getting everything situated. And Donna tries to say the food's going to last them a year. And Jim's like, what are you talking about? This food will last us a month. Like, maybe. We need to let everyone know what's going on. And Donna's like, no way. Like, that's going to cause a panic, i.e., look at you right now, panicking. So, no, we're going to make this work. We'll do the best we can. We've already put new crops down. Remember, the crops got ruined in the storm from the season finale. So, we'll be fine. Let's just take it slow by slow, day by day or whatever, and we can ration out this food. So I don't know how they can make a month of food last a year, even with rationing. And I'm not sure how long it will take for the crops to grow. But yeah, they're gonna have to do a lot of rationing. Like, I feel like they're gonna have to make 1 month last 3, but I don't see how you can extend it for 1 month lasting a year. But Jim says this is what they want. Because remember, Jim thinks someone's watching them. I mean, someone is watching them, maybe, or could have been the monsters. But based on what he saw from the radio or heard from the radio, he now feels this may be an experiment. He's like, of course, they want us to be stressed. This is adding more stress to us. They know that this is what they want. This is like part of their game. And he may be right. Like, I don't know yet if this is an experiment. It could be. But I do think that them or whatever caused that storm to come in obviously wasn't like a natural storm. I do feel like it is trying to bring their stress levels up. Like, even Fatima, she's stressed, and we know why now, but she's been stressed for a while. So yeah, I think Jim is onto something. But I do like the conversation that Ethan and Donna had. Ethan was expressing some concern if this house will fall on them. And Donna's like, no, not if your parents don't dig another hole in the middle of the ground or whatever. And he admits, he says, I'm scared. I don't want to be on this quest anymore. I just want to go home. And Donna says, I'm scared too. And she tells him a story of how, saying that her mom used to say to her or give her this advice, and saying that fear is good. Like, if you're afraid and you still do that action, that's what makes you a hero. And without fear, they wouldn't know to be brave, because they would just do stupid shit all the time because they wouldn't be afraid of it, So I liked this conversation, especially because Donna doesn't seem like a person that has that much interaction with kids, at least in her past life. And even so far here, I mean, Ethan's like the only little kid there in town. So I like that she was able to kind of have that nice, soft, age-appropriate conversation with him, and not just be like, okay, Ethan, we're all scared. Like, just brush him off like she probably would someone else. Or not even necessarily saying she would, but possibly she would do that to another adult. But she didn't do that to Ethan. So really, really appreciate the scene. All right, so we get Fatima and Ellis throughout the whole episode pretty much. But there is some tension there. We see it when they're packing up the food to bring to Miss Lou's house. Fatima doesn't want Ellis's help, and she kind of just is kind of short with him. And Dale goes, trouble in paradise. And then later on, when Ellis is trying to help her hang up the light, she's like, I got it. So once again, she's a little short with him. And then finally, when they have a talk, like, why are you upset? Like, what did I do? What was I supposed to do? My dad asked me not to tell anyone. So I just didn't tell anyone. And Fatima's like, I'm not anyone. Like, we're supposed to be getting married. What your dad did was very dangerous. He made this whole place unsafe by bringing Sarah back because she killed people. And you didn't tell me. Like, that's wrong. Like, of all the people, you should tell me. We tell each other everything. I'm kind of judging Fatima as I say these words, because at the end of the episode, of course, we see her freaking out. She's happy that Ellis is alive, and she's just thankful that he made it. And she asks Kristi to promise not to tell anyone, but she needs a pregnancy test. We have not seen her tell Ellis anything about a pregnancy or a potential pregnancy, so she obviously hasn't told him this. And it's just funny that in the same episode, she tells him, you don't keep stuff from me. Now she's keeping something from him. That's all I'll say. I'm not judging her, but I am doing a little side eye like Fatima. And I actually agree with her. I agree that he should have told her. But I don't necessarily agree with her keeping this a secret, unless she just found out right now and doesn't want to tell Ellis because, he just practically died. But I feel like she's probably known this for a while and's been keeping it in. Like he said, the night they stayed at the sheriff's house, ever since then she's been acting different. She's probably known since then, meaning she's kept this a secret from him. I'm just saying. But let's get to the meat of the episode. I'll probably go scene by scene because a lot of it has to do with Boyd. And then we get to the clinic, which things really pop off. But we'll go through this relatively quickly. All right, so it starts off with Boyd going to see Miss Lou. He tries to explain why he let Sarah come back. And he pretty much says, like, he knows it was wrong, but he's willing to do whatever he needs to do to get these people home. And if for some reason Sarah the killer can help them, then he's going to be able to use that help. He's not going to turn it away because of what she did, because he's willing to use her in order to get them home. But Kenny comes in and kind of like puts that conversation to a stop and pretty much was like, what are you doing here? And we see Boyd leave and go to the church, and the church is empty. And the ballerina music starts coming on, or the box actually is there and it's playing. And then a real live ballerina comes out and starts dancing with Boyd. It was kind of weird and freaky because you're waiting for it to turn into a monster. You don't know what to expect. Like, is this thing going to hurt Boyd in the middle of the day? Can Boyd hurt himself thinking he's hurting the ballerina? Like, so many questions come in mind. My question is, why didn't you run away? Like, as soon as the ballerina popped up, yeah, she didn't look scary, but the fact that a ballerina is there in the town, you know she doesn't belong in the town. Yeah, I'm freaking out. I would have ran out right away. But Boyd dances with it, and then it turns and screams at him, and its mouth opens wide, and like these worms are in its mouth, in her mouth. And it kind of reminded me of The Strain. If you guys ever watched The Strain from a few years ago on FX, that was a really good show. It was like vampires, but they used to have worms. But then Boyd wakes up and he actually just took a fall. So all of this was a figment of his imagination. He was not in the church. There was no ballerina there, but he visualized all of it as if it was there. This makes me think back to Elgin when he was on the bus and he wakes up from his dream. Now, if his dream was as real as Boyd's dream, that would be scary. It makes sense that that's what he woke up from, because Boyd was like he was living it. So if Elgin had this same experience when he was on the bus when they first arrived, and he lived it and then woke up and saw that he was there, that'd be really scary. But turns out he's just a figment of his imagination or dream, whatever you want to call it. And Miss Lou encourages Kenny to walk him to go see Kristi, to walk him to the clinic. Now, on their walk to the clinic, they do mention the trees changing. Boyd and Kenny both look at the trees and say, yeah, the colors are changing, the leaves are falling off, which is typical for like your fall weather, your fall season. But Boyd says he's never seen that happen before. And at this point, it feels as if Boyd's been there for a while. So I don't know if this is the same to the trees changing that Victor was talking about, because Victor was saying the trees were moving. They're saying like the trees are changing colors and the leaves are falling down. So not sure if they're actually noticing the same exact thing in the trees, or if they just both notice, all of them notice, hey, something's up with the trees, but they have a different way of framing what they're noticing. But once again, Boyd, actually this is the first time Boyd starts talking about the pain in his arm. So we've been saying, why isn't Boyd telling anyone what happened to him? He needs to tell someone. This episode, it went drastically, like changed drastically. Because he went from not telling anybody anything to even when Kristi checked him out in the last episode or the one before that, he didn't tell her anything. But now he's rambling off. He's telling Kenny, and not clear and calmly, but he's like, yeah, these things, I can feel them in my arm. I can't always see them, but I can feel them. And that's when the music box starts playing again. And originally I thought, oh, the music is trying to interrupt him from telling anyone. So I was like, oh, they're trying to prevent him from telling someone what happened to him. And that's my first thought. I was like, oh, this is good. He's never going to be able to get out everything. And the ballerina plays and blah, blah. And Kenny doesn't see any of it, and it disappears. And they decide, like, let's just keep walking. Now, another thing I noticed, and I didn't go back to look at other episodes to see if I was right or not, but it just screamed out to me when I first watched last night, which was the cellar door being different color. Like, this cellar door looks like it was replaced. Like, maybe the storm ruined it, but isn't that the whole point of a cellar door? It can hold up on a storm. So I don't know if it was just the setting. Maybe they needed to change. I don't know. Or if it's something we were supposed to recognize. Because at least to me, the cellar door, I'm like, that looks like new wood. Like, that doesn't look like what the door looked like before. I could be wrong. I didn't go back and see, but I just want to note it here just in case, like, next episode or a future episode, they talk about that door being different. Could be wrong. So, yeah, it may not come up ever. So they get to the clinic, and Boyd tries to tell Kristi what happened to him that night. And she doesn't see anything on his arms, and he's telling her about Martin. And he's like, these things were, like, slowly killing him. They wouldn't let him die. Important to note, they wouldn't let him die. And he just says, promise me you will end things before it goes too far. So the thing with him not letting, or the monsters or the worms or whatever, not letting Martin die, and now Boyd feels like it makes me wonder about the monster. Well, technically, it didn't make me wonder about the monster. I thought the monster died. The monster at the end that Boyd goes out and puts his worms against, which we'll get to in a minute. But, well, I'll talk about it when we get there. But just remember that it said they wouldn't let him die. At least that's what Boyd was saying, that Martin was saying about the worms. So then we see Kenny and Kristi discuss Boyd, and Kristi is not too concerned. She's like, I didn't see anything. I don't know. He's been under a lot of stress. But Kenny goes, this reminds me of when my dad first started getting dementia. Like, sometimes he would come home and say stuff that he would never say before. He just was talking irrational. And then he would be back to himself. And it was like that often. We just be like, oh, he just had a moment. Till eventually he kind of trails off, but I'm guessing eventually to where his dad had full-blown dementia and didn't know right from wrong or, up from down at any point. But Kristi says, hey, yes, there's cases where people with Parkinson's get dementia, but once again, that's not till further along. Boyd is just now getting symptoms of Parkinson's. He's not going to get everything all at once. Although I will say, now that I'm thinking about it, I will say, when people say, oh, well, this happens, but it doesn't happen until, the second year, the third year, or whatever, I'm thinking back to, like, when I was pregnant, and there's certain things that they say happen during a pregnancy, or like, well, this will happen in the 4th month, or you might start getting, having to use the bathroom in the 6th or 7th month. No, like, I feel like the moment I found out I was pregnant, I was getting all the symptoms of pregnancy, like, right away. Like, everything that they say could happen in pregnancy, yep, got it. Throughout the whole thing, not like at the 6th month, or the 7th month, or this doesn't happen until later on. I have it now. So Kenny could be onto something. However, in this case, he's not. We know he's not. But with just in regards to Kristi always saying this doesn't happen till later on, or this, the dementia doesn't happen till later on, the memory loss doesn't happen till later on, or whatever other things she's mentioned that doesn't happen for Parkinson's until later on. Yes, it may not typically happen till later on, but at the same time, he can still be experiencing a lot of symptoms that typically don't happen until later on. So we have Boyd. He's alone, which I'm like, how did you guys leave him alone? If you think he's crazy to the point where you don't believe anything he's telling you about these worms, and it's nighttime, and you've recently just had an incident of a door being open purposely at the clinic, why would you leave him alone right now? Like, if I thought he was talking crazy, I'm going to assume he's crazy enough to open the door at night. So I was just very surprised, shocked, I would say, when it showed Boyd just sitting there in the clinic area by himself. And once again, he starts to hear the music. He sees the shadow of a ballerina, and he bravely pulls back the curtains and no one's there. But then the ballerina pops up from behind him. I mean, it was scary. Then she tries to, suffocate him. And he, had to fight her off. And, he's literally fighting off nothing. But the fact that you guys left him alone, I was like, what is he doing alone? All of this right now, he's not fighting anything. But clearly in his mind, and we know in his mind he is really seeing this, that it's making him see this ballerina and fight for his life. I just was like, why is he by himself? But he hears another noise, and he's freaked out from just the ballerina almost trying to kill him. He pulls out his gun. It's just Mario, who's freaked out now too. Like, what the hell? I got a gun pulled on me. And he calms down and says he's sorry, and he puts the gun down. He's like, I'm so sorry. So he's in his right enough mind to know, like, oh shit, I just pulled a gun on someone. So right after that scene, that's when we get Ellis and Fatima having their conversation about, how he should have told her everything. And they were interrupted from that conversation when they hear some noise downstairs. And Dale's accusing the new people of stealing food. And we've seen Dale. He gets a little drunk. He has a little attitude. We've seen it in a few episodes, just little small things in passing. Him and Ellis have already had words in the past. I believe Donna ended up having to punch him in the face when Ellis was about to fight him because he was saying, don't go shooting up the place, And then Donna punched him when he said mother like son. So Dale's down here being assholes now to the new people. He's accusing Elgin of stealing. And Elgin's like, no, I was actually putting my food that I already had. I was adding it to the pantry. Like, he was doing the opposite of stealing. He was trying to contribute to their food source. And Dale actually literally tries to kick him out of the house right then and there. It's full-blown dark. It's not like, oh, it's about to turn dark. It's full-blown dark. No one's leaving right now. But he's literally physically pushing them out, saying, like, you guys need to get out. So Ellis tries to stop him. Dale already had a knife in his hand because he was cutting up vegetables at that time. And when Dale turns around to, like, kind of push Ellis off of him, he accidentally stabs Ellis. Now, I do see a lot of people on the forum saying, okay, is now Dale going to go in the box? I think Boyd has already made it clear no one else is going in the box. Like, Sarah killed people. She's not going in the box. There's no way they can put Dale now in the box for an accidental killing. Like, he wasn't using that knife as a weapon to even try to get those people out of the house, you know, the bus people. And he didn't try to intentionally stab Ellis either. But that's why you got to be really careful with knives. Like, knives are very, very dangerous. I always heard if someone has a knife, you don't try to fight them. Like, that's a losing battle. Not that that's what Ellis was doing, but I'm just saying. So I don't think Dale will go in the box. I don't even know if he'll get kicked out of Colony House. Like, if anything, he'll probably get kicked out of Colony House. Like, that's the worst that would happen. Like, you got to go down there. You've been causing too much drama and, you know, issues over here. And then before we get back to that whole Ellis thing, and which was very exciting scene. I didn't want Ellis to die. I was so scared he would die, but I did not want him to die. That scene was exciting. But before we get to that, we get Father Kotri. He appears again. So my theory of him appearing where he died is not true, because he died at the sheriff's station / post office. Here he appeared in the clinic, and he even tells Boyd, I'm a figment of your imagination. So Boyd is worried. He's looking at Kenny's dad's dead bloodstains, and he's like, well, all in like him. And they have a little talk, and then that's when Kenny comes in. And like, I guess Kenny is very, very mad. Kenny's coming to his own right now. Like, he's pissed. Things are still very fresh for him. And he demands Boyd to tell him who he was talking to. Like, he's trying to have control over Boyd. Because clearly, when he asks that, Boyd's like, no one, nothing. There is no one else there. But Kenny doesn't just let it go. He closes the door, like, literally entraps Boyd in there. And goes, no, you're going to tell me who you were talking to. And that's when Boyd says, something happened to me out there. I know you guys think I sound crazy. I know you're hearing me, and I know I sound crazy. But something happened to me, and I'm terrified. I don't think Kenny really cared. Kenny, I mean, he had so much respect for Boyd, and right now, emotions are so high. He's not really trying to listen to what Boyd has to say. Like, he's just looking at him as someone that used to be his hero that has now gone crazy. And he's been through that before, because I'm pretty sure his dad was probably his hero, even though he says they didn't really have much in common except for the chess. It's almost like PTSD for Kenny, because now someone else that was a father figure that he had a relationship with is now going what seems to be crazy, or, you know, losing their right mind. So I feel for Kenny in that moment. I don't think him trying to entrap Boyd trap Boyd into that space was good, especially if you think he's crazy. And he's like, yeah, Mario told us what you did. Why are you guys leaving him alone? He needs to be with someone else at all times. Like, it's nighttime. He can open the doors. I'm not going to go on. All right. So we get back to Colony House. Fatima's like, we need to go to the clinic. Ellis tries to protest, saying, like, let's wait till the morning. And I'm so glad Fatima did not listen, because he would have never made it to the morning. And Elgin was so brave, because they clearly see that they're not going to be able to make it to the van because it's all the way by the shed, which I don't understand how they don't always have cars parked in front. Like, the car should always be as close as possible to the house. Like, every night. That's like your pre-night routine. Park them outside, make sure everyone knows where all the keys are, da-da-da. So, anywho, he runs out to the front door, and he gets the car. He brings it back to the front door. He's honking outside, let him know. Now, one thing I didn't notice, well, I noticed and I didn't like, is that he honks right outside the Colony House. Like, even though he only went, they could see where he went. He went and grabbed the car, and he honks out there. But when they arrive at the clinic, he doesn't honk then. Small thing. But this scene was amazing. Like, from the moment Elgin runs outside to the van, you see the monsters, they're coming out. They're very, very close. He runs in, he drops the keys, he can figure out where it was. I mean, this scene was tense. He gets in, honks, goes and helps Ellis into the car. And then, like, he was so brave. No one else helped Fatima bring Ellis out, because Elgin should have just been able to stand in the driver's seat, while other people come and help. But no, he had to get out, help Ellis inside, and then go back around, and like a monster hits the window, like kind of like hits the window, like stop, you know. I thought this scene was amazing. As I mentioned before, Gary and I, we have a podcast. My husband Gary, we cover The Walking Dead, or we did, and we're gonna cover the spinoffs. But one thing we always have on the show at the end of each episode is I'm Not Fearing Shit award. So it's I'm Not Fearing Shit award and Most Likely to Die award. I'm not gonna add them here, but when I was watching, I was like, Ellis is not fearing shit. And I thought about the awards we give, and I'm like, he deserves I Ain't Fearing Shit award, because he doesn't even know them, and he was willing to do this. He was very, very brave. The scene of them driving to the clinic from the calling house in the dark, and you can't see anything. You just see all these bushes and trees he's hitting, and like, she's like, follow the road. I'm like, what road? I don't see shit. It's so dark out there. There's no lights because they're not in a... Well, there's lights near the diner and stuff, but there's no lights where they're at. And Elgin's like, do you see any of those things out there? And I'm like, are they even going to make it? Like, this scene of them in the car, like, the whole time I was like, even the second time watching, I'm like, this scene is still scary, even though I know they make it to the clinic. But yeah, amazing. The directing, the cinematography, everything in this scene was filmed beautifully. The actors did a wonderful job. I'm over here praising Elgin, but I will praise Ellis too, because him acting like he was stabbed and like, I can't breathe. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. So Kristi lets him in. Thankfully, she doesn't hesitate. She looks outside, sees it's them, lets him in, immediately gets to work. And she does let Mario help. Boyd comes in and sees his son and is freaking out too. And Fatima's freaking out, and everyone's freaking out while they're working on him. And Boyd eventually takes Fatima away. Elgin's like, I can't be around this blood. And he walks away. And Fatima tells Boyd, she's like, I cannot lose him. I cannot. And Kristi's like, we were able to get everything under control, but he lost a lot of blood. We're going to need a blood transfusion. We're going to need a blood transfusion. And that's when Boyd's like, you can't use my blood because look at my situation. And at the time, no one has seen the worms yet. So they're just like, okay, Boyd, you're talking crazy. He's going to die. And even Fatima's like, even if what you're saying is true, it's better than him dying. And Boyd's like, no, you don't understand the kind of pain I'm in. I'm not doing that to my own son. Like, nope, we got to find a different way. And then Kenny pulls the gun out on Boyd. Oh my gosh. This scene was good. I'm loving Kenny's growth, like, into his own. Like, not saying this was right that he did it, but old Kenny would have never did it. Season 1 Kenny would have never pulled a gun out on Boyd or anyone he was disagreeing with. But he pulls that gun out on Boyd and says, get in the chair and let Kristi do what she got to do. And Boyd, oh my gosh, Boyd said, I mean, the whole scene, this whole episode was so good because Boyd looks at Kenny and he doesn't look like hurt that Kenny's pulling the gun on him. He looks like a sad parent, like trying to rationalize with their kid, because he's like, oh no, Kenny. Like, no, this is like, it was so good. So everything's happening at once, but then Mario sees the worms, and then they all see the worms, and then Kenny, talking about Elgin being brave, Kenny was like, fuck it. Cut me. Put it in me. You said Martin passed it to you, so that means you should be able to pass it to me. Pass it to me, and then you can do the blood transfusion. Anything just to help Ellis. I'm like, oh, Kenny, we love you. You're amazing. Don't let anything ever happen to Kenny. He's our number one. We don't want anything to happen to him. He's such a strong, such a good person. Like, it just made me happy, because even when Kenny's being mean and hurtful, he's hurt. He's hurt right now. Hurt people. He's hurt. And we know that's not in his, it's not in his heart. Hate is not in his heart. He's just so hurt right now, and he doesn't know how to express that hurt. But just then, that's when Boyd is like, fine. Yes, I can pass it to someone. And he goes outside. He's like, I got an idea. And he goes outside, and everyone's just like, what? So Boyd calls the monsters. We get the scary man, that young guy from the bus that killed the couple. He comes out, and you're just like, Boyd, run back inside. Stop it. I don't know what you're going to do. There's no way you can do this. And then a few more appear, and it just, I'm so excited. So I'm going to calm down for a minute. But Boyd, he cuts his hand, and he slits the monster's throat. Like, I know I said Elgin was brave, but this is even braver. Like, you're facing them face to face, and you're telling them, come on. There's like 6 or 7 there. There's a bunch of them there. And he slits the guy's throat and puts his hand to his neck. And then he kind of shakes because now, like, the worms are pretty much leaving his body, just like what Martin did. Remember, Martin sort of fell to the ground and then died. The only reason why Martin died because he was really old and he'd been deteriorating for so long. So Boyd doesn't die, but he shakes his hand. His hand's shaking. He's shaking. And afterwards, the monster just looks and he's like, I like this game. And you're just like, oh no. But then the monster starts shaking and screaming, and his face turns all monstery, and then he falls to the ground. And the other monsters just sort of ignore Boyd and just stare at their fellow monster friend on the ground like some weird ceremony type of thing. And then Boyd kind of like scoots back and goes back to inside the clinic. And you see the monsters just walk away from the fallen monster that's on the ground. Amazing. Amazing. And we see Kenny and Boyd, they're looking over at the monster. This is after the transfusion. Fatima, telling Kristi she needs a pregnancy test and not to tell anyone. But they're looking at the monster and it's affected. And Kenny says, like, we should have listened to you. We should have trusted you. And you kind of see, like, that hate is gone now. Because he understands everything. Like, okay, Boyd went through a lot of shit. And he didn't even tell us everything. He just started telling us about the worms. And you have to just trust him. If he's doing something and he doesn't tell you, he's trying to do it for the best of the people. And he's been protecting you guys for so long. Like, you should have trusted him. And and Kenny pretty much said all that in like 2 sentences. Like, we should have trusted you. We should have believed you. Like, I'm sorry. And Boyd, being a great person and father and man he is, he's like, it's all good. Everything worked out in the end. It's all good. And they're staring at the monster, and Kenny goes, do you think it's dead? And he says, we'll find out soon enough. And that's how it ends. So I want to say, it ends with it still being dark outside. It's still the next night after we saw Randall, configuring the bus the way he did. Because that's what I was hoping for this episode. I was hoping we see Randall on that bus, and I was hoping he would be scared. We didn't see it this episode, but it is still nighttime when the episode ended. So I believe next episode, episode 7, it will still be nighttime, and maybe it's still going to be that same night, and maybe we'll see the Randall stuff then. But in regards to the monster, if he's dead or not, as I mentioned, Boyd said they will not let him die. The worm things would not let Martin die. I'm going to give credit to this theory because my husband mentioned it after we were watching. He's like, what if the monster is now like a daywalker or something? Because if the worms don't let him die, don't let Martin die, maybe it's not going to let the monster die. Maybe it just did all this to the monster now because now he's going to be a daywalker. And of course, if the monster's a daywalker, that's a very big problem for our people if he's up during the day and can kill them during the day. Or a second theory that I'm coming up with on my own is, what if this infected him to where he's no longer a monster? Like, he's a regular person. Now he has to live amongst them. Like, he would really be like, if they don't forgive Sarah for what she did, they damn sure ain't going to forgive this monster if he's like a regular person, goes, I don't know what I was doing. Like, I could see everything I was doing, but I couldn't stop it. Like, that would be freaking weird. I don't know which one would be. I know which one would be scarier if the monster's a daywalker, which would be more the gossip, the oh my gosh, how can they actually live together, is if the monster is turned back to a human. And I don't even know if the monster was a human to begin with, but if, say, the monster is now human all of a sudden. So we'll see. It was a great episode. Loved it. Loved it. Can't wait for episode 7. I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. Send me your feedback. host@theverdictsend.com. That's HOST@theverdictsend.com. and I'll discuss your feedback on the podcast. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook at The Verdict's In or Twitter at The Verdict's In, or you can also follow me on TikTok just under my name, Nicole Clark. All right, until then, I'm Nicole. Talk to you later. Bye.